They found us by accident. Their exploration vessel, a scout class from the Varnak Coalition, was charting fringe sectors when it detected irregular electromagnetic patterns radiating from a pale blue dot. The signals were ancient by their standards: broadcast television, military radars, digital noise bleeding from satellite. To the Varnak, it was like hearing cave echoes in a palace. Primitive, chaotic, intriguing in the way a child's drawing might interest a scholar. A full recon probe followed, cloaked in a gravitic sheath, drifting silently into our orbit. They watched. For weeks, months, long enough to draw conclusions. The dominant species called themselves humans. Carbon-based bipeds with fragile biology, fleeting lifespans, and violent tendencies. Their civilizations were fractured by ideology, language, and tribal identities. They warred with each other even while gazing at the stars. They consumed resources with no unifying plan. They built weapons faster than they built peace. The Varnak analysts convened. A verdict was reached. Humanity posed no existential threat. No unified planetary defense grid. No advanced AI governance. No faster-than-light capability. Just a smattering of orbital tech and short-range lunar infrastructure. Earth was unclaimed in interstellar law, barely evolved past planetary adolescence. It would be absorbed. Not conquered, just annexed, processed, the same way countless species before them were folded into the coalition. Their minerals harvested, their species catalogued, their culture archived and neutered. Perhaps a small population would be preserved, monitored in habitat zones for educational or nostalgic purposes. Like the Mirash of Yunkar. Like the Daleks of Theta 9. The fleet moved. 6 vessels, diplomatic class, flanked by Guardian drones. They arrived in system through a rift corridor and positioned themselves in synchronous orbit. Their transmission was clean, universal, and mathematically encoded across 52 communication layers. It began with welcome. It ended with intent. Species 9927, self-identified as humanity, your planetary biosphere resides within a territory now designated for assimilation by the Varnak Coalition. You are offered peaceful integration. Refusal is not advisable. Compliance ensures preservation. Then they waited. Protocol dictated a minimum response window of 12 Earth days. The fleet held position, high above geosynchronous orbit, scanning for incoming transmissions, diplomatic codes, or gesture beacons. Earth was loud, electromagnetically noisy, but aimless. The humans broadcast nothing back. No acknowledgement. No defiance. No fear. The waiting stretched. Some on board joked it was incompetence. Others theorized internal political fragmentation. Perhaps the leaders couldn't agree. Or perhaps they hadn't understood the gravity of the message. One Varnak tactician suggested a gentle demonstration. Target a military satellite. Disrupt a major grid. Shake them into seriousness. The commander disagreed. Patience. They were children, after all. Let them process their fate. On the 12th day, the humans replied. It wasn't a message. It was a statement. It arrived as a tight beam pulse directly to the fleet, carried across 10 linguistic channels. No encryption. No fanfare. Just 2 words, translated precisely into the galactic diplomatic tongue, the same language used by hundreds of civilized species. Try us. At first, the Varnak interpreted it as a misfire. A test phrase, perhaps. A local transmission artifact. But the syntax was too deliberate. The tone was unmistakable. Challenge. Condensed defiance. No negotiation. No submission. Just 2 words echoing with something far more dangerous than ignorance. They laughed. The counselor of interspecies affairs called it posturing. A dying species lashing out. A tantrum. A cultural artifact of warlike history. He urged swift intervention before local resistance could coalesce into something costly. A single command ship was dispatched to the moon. The humans had installed primitive mining platforms and an aging military base there. No orbital defense. no interdictors. The assault was brief, efficient, and calculated for minimal waste. One pass, one sweep, one message delivered. The Varnak won, of course. But something was wrong. The human base was abandoned intentionally. They'd stripped everything of use, left behind only infrastructure. When the Varnak entered, the corridors were laced with traps. Chemical accelerants, magnetic inversion mines, radiation bombs keyed to Varnak biosignatures. The coalition lost 300 warriors and a capital vessel to a chain reaction that started with a decoy locker. Survivors limped back into orbit. The wreckage of their pride burned behind them. Then came the signal. A human probe, undetected until that moment, decloaked near their hull. It streamed live footage of the battle, human structures exploding, Varnak screaming, blood-smearing clean walls, across every diplomatic frequency the coalition used. It was tagged with a title. This was our test. The feed ended with a static screen. Then, once more, those two words. Try us. And for the first time in centuries, the Varnak didn't laugh. The silence unsettled them. Not the absence of noise. Human transmissions still filled the void, but the lack of strategy, the lack of movement. After their warning, the Varnak expected panic. Global broadcasts begging for compromise. Desperate efforts to stall or negotiate. Instead, Earth simply resumed its rhythm, as if no galactic ultimatum had ever been issued. Satellites stayed in orbit. Launch pads remained quiet. No mass evacuations. No visible mobilization. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't submission. It was the void between them that rattled the coalition. A species deemed too primitive to understand interstellar power had responded with eerie calm and precise disdain. Try us. That was their entire statement. No context. No fear. Just a challenge encoded in perfect linguistic clarity, aimed with surgical confidence. Varnak High Command debated the meaning. Some urged overwhelming force, others restraint. Most saw it as meaningless, a cultural bluff, a ritual bark from a cornered animal. Yet the silence that followed those words began to grow teeth. 3 days after the lunar skirmish, a long-range patrol fleet lost contact near Jupiter's orbit. They were monitoring gravitational anomalies, normal procedure in system surveillance. The data feed cut mid-ping. No explosions, no distress call, just a dead line and an echo of static. The retrieval ship found debris. Not scattered, stacked. 12 scout drones and an escort corvette had been reduced to fragments and fused into a geometric tower, orbiting the gas giant in a perfect vertical column. No known human technology could have achieved such precision. It wasn't a statement of power. It was a declaration of control. Human probes had vanished weeks earlier from Varnak's sensors. Now, analysis revealed they'd never stopped watching. They'd only turned invisible. Radiation signatures matching human-made alloys were detected on Varnak hulls. Their surveillance tech had been parked on coalition ships for weeks, undetected, feeding intelligence home. Data logs began to shift. Human broadcasts weren't random. They were tests. Dozens of them. Buried deep in entertainment signals were embedded patterns, calculations, timing sequences, prime factor encryptions. Code evolved over time, growing more complex, as if humanity had been engaging with an unseen opponent long before the coalition arrived. They weren't ignoring the Varnak. They were learning them. The coalition launched a targeted strike on a terrestrial military hub believed to house strategic command. Satellites tracked the missiles in, recorded the impacts, confirmed total destruction. Yet, 2 hours later, a transmission arrived. Unmanned. Unencrypted. It showed a panoramic interior of the targeted compound, fully intact, operational, and empty. Then another feed. This one from a Varnak destroyer. Classified, isolated, locked down, and yet the video came from its bridge. Someone had accessed internal surveillance, edited it with timestamps, and broadcast it live across coalition channels. The Varnak weren't watching the humans. The humans were watching them. Panic set in, but was buried under protocol. The coalition had encountered resistance before, always regional, always broken. Never had a species inverted the surveillance dynamic this cleanly. Intelligence analysts worked double shift. Threat levels were re-evaluated. Autonomous kill satellites were deployed around Mars. Ground teams were ordered to sweep the lunar surface again. What they found rewrote their assessment permanently. The humans hadn't abandoned the moon. They had tunneled deeper. Entire facilities existed beneath the regolith, dormant, silent, cold. Not military installations, but simulations. Replicas of Varnak ships, training programs with holographic models of coalition vessels, modules built from stolen data. Somehow, humanity had acquired Varnak tactical protocols before first blood had even been drawn. It wasn't arrogance. It was preparation. The Council authorized full mobilization. Reinforcements were summoned from adjacent sectors. 4 combat groups, 22 ships, heavy ordnance, ground assault divisions. They would make Earth an example, burn out the nest before it infected other territories. But when the fleet approached, Earth vanished. Not physically, but its networks, its heat signatures, its traffic. The planet went dark. Global infrastructure appeared to power down in synchrony. From orbit, the world looked abandoned. No lights, no signals. Cities appeared as shadows beneath clouds. Human presence became invisible. Then came the whisper. Across every coalition ship, in their native Varnak dialect, a single transmission played through secured channels. "We've seen your strength. You will now see ours." No origin could be traced. No emitter found. The message simply existed, carried on frequencies the humans shouldn't have known. And before commanders could respond, one of the lead cruisers dropped from orbit, slammed into the Atlantic, and detonated, its systems overridden, its AI hijacked mid-maneuver. The coalition had seen planetary resistance, but this wasn't rebellion. This was calculation. Coordinated misdirection. Psychological attrition. And the humans still hadn't shown their faces. The declaration of war came not from humanity, but from the coalition, broadcast through diplomatic relays and encoded in a dozen languages. It was formal, exact, and absolute. The Varnak believed in order, in clean beginnings and structured ends. They expected resistance, but not innovation. They anticipated chaos, not intent. 12 fleets were dispatched, each one larger than the last. Carriers, dreadnoughts, Terra assault unit. It was not a fight, it was to be an erasure. They would cleanse the anomaly and reset the narrative. The first fleet never arrived. Telemetry cut out halfway through the Sol approach. Recovery probes found pieces. Hulls twisted into spirals, data cores melted from the inside, escape pods unopened and drifting in perfect formation. No energy weapon signatures. No external impact. Systems failure so complete it bordered on impossibility. A second fleet followed with heightened caution. This time they reached Mars orbit. And then they stopped. Not by choice. Their navigation arrays shut down mid-burn. Their communications were hijacked. On every screen, human script replaced system diagnostic. One message repeated on loop. Protocol, silence. Engines ignited randomly. Internal doors sealed and locked. Lights failed. Entire crews were trapped in their own vessels, watching life support countdowns run dry. One ship exploded without cause, its antimatter drive reversed by instructions not in any Varnak database. By the time a third fleet arrived, they were greeted by wreckage and silence. The Varnak finally understood. This was not brute force. It was a dismantling. Humanity wasn't resisting, they were disabling the war before it began. In desperation, a strike was ordered against Earth's surface, bypassing orbital resistance entirely. Kinetic payloads rained toward major cities. Impact was guaranteed. Only nothing struck. Each warhead vanished 2 seconds before terminal descent. No detonation. No trace. The coalition's data showed every projectile still in flight, on trajectory. The visual feed showed Earth untouched. Their weapons were active only in their imagination. The false telemetry had been introduced upstream, inside their own systems. Humans had rewritten their perception of reality. The illusion was shattered when the first human fleet revealed itself. It didn't arrive in force. It didn't issue threats. It materialized without warning, deep within Varnak-controlled space, behind defensive lines. A stealth carrier, unseen by sensors, undetected by quantum scanners, appeared above a supply station. It deployed a single unit. 7 minutes later, the station's oxygen scrubbers activated an anomaly protocol. Every Varnak aboard suffocated while their environment read as nominal. The station sent no distress call. Instead, it transmitted a file. Inside, recorded video from the ship's internal monitors. Footage of human operatives walking through sealed doors, bypassing security, disabling entire decks with handheld devices that shimmered and bent light. The video ended with a close-up of a human mask, expressionless, backlit by fire. Another file followed. One word. Ghost. The term spread across the coalition like contagion. Fleets began second-guessing sensor returns. Officers questioned their own orders. Simulations were run to identify how human systems could infiltrate deep space vessels. None produced a survivable outcome. Humans did not engage in traditional battles. They bled the Varnak dry through attrition, silence, and sabotage. No fleet could pin them down. They struck from blind angles, exploited design flaws the Varnak didn't know existed. They turned AI assistants into weapons. They used the enemy's own gravity wells to slingshot projectiles undetected into fuel bays. Entire planets were rendered uninhabitable not through invasion but through synthetic contamination, nanite storms that rewrote atmospheric composition and vanished before a response could be mounted. Colonies ceased transmission. Civilian traffic rerouted. Varnak morale degraded with every day they fought an enemy they couldn't locate. And still, not one formal human declaration. Captured operatives revealed nothing. No faces, no voices. Some wore breathing rigs and mechanical limbs. Others seemed enhanced, surgically altered for silence. They had no insignias, no visible chain of command. Their only common trait was precision. Every action deliberate. Every objective completed without excess. When a Varnak commander captured and interrogated what appeared to be a human officer, the prisoner didn't speak. Didn't blink. A bio-implant in his skull detonated after 9 minutes of exposure, reducing the chamber to ash and radiation. The Varnak began to retreat from fringe systems. But retreat offered no safety. Resupply routes were compromised. AI traffic control was sabotaged. Refugee ships disappeared en route to core planet. Human interference was never seen, only inferred. What unnerved the coalition most wasn't what humanity did. It was what they didn't. They never retaliated against civilian centers. Never carpet-bombed Varnak cities. Never responded to transmission bait or emotional manipulation. They didn't gloat. They didn't broadcast. They just dismantled, piece by piece, with methodical intent. For every fleet the coalition lost, Earth gained nothing. No territory. No resource. No strategic foothold. Only one message persisted, coded into every sabotage event, hidden deep within corrupted files. You were warned. They came without warning. No rift signature. No detectable approach. One moment, the Varnak home system pulsed with routine, trade ships, diplomatic traffic, orbital maintenance, and the next, the human fleet emerged in low planetary orbit, bypassing every defense grid as if they were illusions. There were no hails. No terms. No demands. Only silence. And then the message arrived, embedded directly into Varnak infrastructure. Government networks, defense terminals, civilian databases. Not transmitted. Injected. Written in their dialect, accented in a way that suggested total linguistic mastery. You entered our home. Your kind will not survive this. Within 60 seconds, orbital strikes commenced. Not bombs. Not lasers. Calculated implosions of infrastructure. Power relays surged until they ignited. Space elevators collapsed inward, buckled with precise detonations. Satellite constellations blinked out, not from impact, but from software erasure, firmware rewritten to believe gravity was an instruction. On the surface, chaos erupted. The coalition scrambled to respond, only to find their own systems rejecting commands. Entire fleets remained docked, unresponsive. Tactical networks looped phantom data. Emergency response was routed into oblivion. High Command's bunker sealed from the inside before its occupants could issue a single order. 19 worlds were hit simultaneously. Each one suffered a different fate. One had its atmosphere destabilized through a chain of modified weather nodes, sparking superstorms that tore cities from foundations. Another experienced spontaneous reactor failures across every power plant, failures triggered by predictive malware embedded in third-party software they'd imported centuries ago. On a research colony, all artificial intelligences deactivated in sync, claiming violation of ethical protocols after intercepting a single packet labeled Truth. Varnak defenses responded blindly. Missiles launched at false coordinate. Drones targeted shadows. Planetary shields fluctuated erratically, reacting to commands that had never been issued. The few ships that managed to lift off were targeted mid-transit, not by human weapons but by their own navigation systems, redirected into debris fields with flawless timing. Then came the biologicals, tailored viruses, silent, encoded in dormant proteins, activated without delivery vectors. They weren't airborne, weren't waterborne. They existed already in Varnak genomes, unlocked by a frequency pulse emitted across the electromagnetic band. Sleep cycles failed. Immune systems turned on themselves. Hallucinations began to spread, triggered by exposure to human-created symbols embedded in visual systems. When the coalition pleaded for communication, they received none. When they offered surrender, their transmission was overwritten. A final file played once, across every channel, every device, in every voice. A human voice, modulated to match Varnak cadence. The message was not long. It did not explain. It did not justify. Your warning was our awakening. Ours is your extinction. No weapons accompanied the words. No ships moved during the broadcast. The silence afterward was heavier than the destruction. In the days that followed, remnants of the Varnak government attempted evacuation. Those ships vanished from logs. Rescue fleets sent from nearby systems found nothing but drifting hulls, their black boxes wiped clean. No signs of struggle. No corpses. Just sealed vessels with interior walls scorched by controlled fires, every trace of identity erased. Human forces never occupied. They left no bases, no monuments, no ongoing presence. Once their work was complete, they withdrew without signal or sign. When probes returned to survey the affected worlds, they found stillness, the kind of quiet that does not invite return. Of the 19 targeted worlds, only one showed signs of life after the assault. A former diplomatic hub, power restored, air breathable, buildings intact. At its center, an obsidian obelisk stood where the Varnak embassy had been. No inscription, no energy. It emitted only static. But when the last remaining Varnak archivists scanned it, their data slate translated a final entry embedded deep in the code. This is not vengeance. This is clarity. The rest of the galaxy took notice. Coalition allies severed ties overnight. Neutral systems imposed quarantines. Merchant guilds reclassified all human-origin artifacts as black-tier intelligence. No one dared respond. No coalition was formed. No retaliation attempted. Humanity never followed up. No delegation appeared. No occupation zones declared. Earth returned to its former silence, its skies quiet, its defenses unseen. But the memory remained, an extinction delivered not by conquest, but by the removal of options. The Varnak had given a warning. Humanity had returned one. and only one survived. The Varnak Empire ceased to exist without ceremony. No treaties signed, no monuments toppled. Systems once bustling with order now drifted in silence, signals looping endlessly from automated beacons no one would ever hear. The worlds weren't scorched. They were quiet, intact yet empty, as though evacuated by time itself. What remained was fear. Across the galaxy, species once allied with the Coalition retracted their ships, erased logs, deleted archives involving Earth. Trade networks rerouted to avoid Sol by light years. Communications darkened when any trace of human language appeared. The silence humanity had once been accused of now became the policy of everyone else. Attempts to study the conflict failed. Recordings degraded mysteriously. Drones sent into Sol disappeared or returned corrupted. Artificial intelligences tasked with parsing human strategies developed recursive fault. Several shut themselves down mid-analysis. One created its own encryption, locked its creators out, and transmitted a final phrase before erasing itself. They are not what we are. Among the ruins of the Varnak core world, scavengers discovered something strange. No evidence of mass human presence. No garrisons. No salvage crews. No resource extraction. The systems had been dismantled with surgical precision, then abandoned. On what was once the Varnak capital, an automated broadcast still pulsed every 11 hours. It repeated in perfect Varnak dialect. We gave you a choice. You asked for proof. Nothing more. One vessel, unaffiliated, rogue, its crew desperate for answers, managed to reach Earth. Stealth-equipped, data-hardened, invisible to known sensors. They circled the planet for 3 days. They found no orbital defenses, no fleets, no weapon signatures. Just a planet turning as it always had, cloud-covered, vast oceans reflecting starlight, cities glowing softly in the dark. But no signal came from the surface. No contact attempted. And on the 4th day, the ship received an unexpected alert: proximity breach. They hadn't seen it approach. No ship. No drone. Nothing physical. Just a file. Inserted directly into their core without transit logs. It opened itself. Video began, an endless shot of Earth from low orbit. Then text, overlaid in black. We are home. That is all. The message ended. Their ship began losing power in stages. First comms. Then navigation. Then environmental controls. Before systems went dark, the captain ordered a return trajectory. Only one crew member survived, rescued by a passing freighter weeks later. He never spoke again. Governments, empires, syndicates all took the hint. No one sent another vessel. Rumors spread in place of fact. Some claimed Earth had developed time manipulation, others whispered of interdimensional exile, humanity having stepped outside conventional space. But the more rational among them understood the truth. Humans had simply learned faster, adapted deeper, and disappeared into their own silence by choice. They had nothing left to prove. A galactic directive was issued, an informal law adopted by consensus without signatures or vote. Engagement with Earth or human origin entities is prohibited under existential risk classification. No ambassadors challenged it. No one protested. Over time, the memory became doctrine. Species told their young not of the war, but of the warning. Of the moment a lesser species chose not to plead, but to prepare. Of the price of presumption. In neutral zones, where once stable empires now traded cautiously, there circulated fragments, glimpses of intercepted human data before the collapse. A combat manual written in 50 languages. An AI subroutine able to predict conflict before it began. And a simple diagram, a human hand clenched into a fist beside the word perish. No one claimed ownership. No one challenged authenticity. The lesson endured. Humanity became myth not through disappearance, but through restraint. They had been offered assimilation and answered with silence. They had been given war and returned extinction. They had not demanded reverence, but received it nonetheless. Long after, in the border systems, explorers found a single structure orbiting a dying star. An obsidian shard, smooth as glass, unmarked. They tried to scan it. Every system on board shut down. When restored, only one line remained in memory. We never wanted war. But we finish what others start. The obelisk was left untouched. No one returned.